Prevence Podcast.
Welcome again, everyone, to the Prevence Podcast, where we invite our guests to talk about the work and the lies before the backdrop of digitization and connectivity. Today, I'm talking to Jonas, who is a work psychologist at Ambient Innovation in Cologne. He's a passionate pioneer of modern workplace culture, highly experienced in both the enterprise and startup environment. He is also the king of dad jokes and the inventor of the 10 O'clock Truce. Jonas, my man, did I get everything, or did I miss out on a field of expertise there?
No, I think you have covered everything, everything that makes me an individual.
I'm going to start off with a really abstract question. Jonas, what do you do?
All right. Okay. Pulling no punches. What do I do? Wow, we're getting existential fast. So, in my professional life, I'm mostly concerned with creating workplaces that don't suck, which appears to be not many yet. But yeah, we're working on it, and I do like to think that innovation in that space is something that's happening, and I just find it very interesting, both personally and professionally. I also spend my time during this pandemic cooking a lot, mastering the classic French omelette, for example, or baking, that type of thing. It's very mundane, but yeah, and I'm a pretty normal dude. I have a family, and I spend time with them. I go to work.
Cool. I have a couple of topics lined up today for us. One of them is leadership. In that regard, I wanted to ask you, I saw this question on LinkedIn. I'm just going to shamelessly borrow that question. What is the difference between a boss and a leader to you?
What immediately comes to mind is a picture of... I
think we saw the same post.
Possibly. It's a bit of a meme, but it's repeated for good reason. So a boss, I think, in most people's minds is someone who gets them to do things they don't really want to be doing, and then sort of just ignores personal preferences, desires, and everything else, and just finds ways to, what's the right word, to I don't know, nudge. Let's keep it friendly. Let's say finds ways to nudge people to do what they feel needs to be done. And a leader, I think, for most people would be someone who charges ahead and sort of provides people with a vision, purpose, and finds ways to get people to focus on something they actually want to achieve, right. And inspires people to follow.
Right, exactly. That's exactly the thing I had in mind as well. Leader is someone that you would like to follow, whereas a boss is someone who would tell you, you go ahead and do that, see what happens, and in the end, you're going to be the one who takes the fall, which might not even necessarily be the case, but I would always be more comfortable following someone who's already, gone the mile before and said, okay, go ahead and follow me, and not say, okay, we're just going to try this, and you're going to be the one to test that out. What's the worst leadership experience or boss experience that you have ever made? Okay,
so small disclaimer, personality-wise, I'm not great with authority. So I've had several experiences. They're all very diverse. I'm very, very good at finding things I find objectionable personally when people do this. And I don't mean to demean them. I think everybody's doing their best. What comes to mind? One thing that I will just never fully comprehend. I had a job once where there was very little to do, and I felt a little bit lost. And I went to the person supervising me, and I made a pitch. I embellished a little bit, but basically the gist was that I told them that there was not so much to do, and I would like to contribute more and be more productive, and maybe there's a project that I could contribute to or something else. And the response I got was, it's not part of my duties to create tasks for you when there are none. Let's just say I mildly disagree. up to this day. But yeah, that was very wild in my mind, because I always thought, I was like, man, she will think I'm so awesome that I come and ask to be doing more and
proactively go up to someone and be like, hey,
and instead the whole dynamic changed, and it was like a limited time contract and it didn't get renewed. Surprise. After this, so I didn't make friends that day, apparently.
Yeah.
So that was wild. Should I go on?
No, actually, I'm just going to hook right into that.
Yeah.
What would you? What was your direct response to that, or what would you say for people that are experiencing bad leadership? What would be the best response as an employee, or maybe as also a fellow other manager, in response to exactly that bad leadership, where you obviously don't have the same opinion, and you have to somehow handle it? I mean, what did you do in that situation then?
I did other things.
Okay, yeah.
Just I embraced the boredom and waited for the contract to finish.
Okay,
But that was also because just over time, it became apparent that I wasn't able to change the situation. It was like a whole very corporate, traditional environment, and it's not very. I wouldn't have hired myself into that position had I known what it was like.
I see.
But what people should do, definitely talk about it. I mean, you can't solve a problem if you're not talking about it, and you should definitely go and reach out to the people and tell them what you need, what you're experiencing, and be very solution oriented in that, I think. Yeah. But if that's not reciprocated, just leave.
Yeah. Okay.
Leave the job, leave the company. I mean, sometimes you can transfer within the same company, that's fine. But if you feel like you want something else and you're just increasingly sure you won't get it, just leave. And there is no trying to hope or to affect change in another person against their will is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Asking from a different perspective then are there certain characteristics that you find that define a really good leader? For me, it's for example, the ability to actually learn, or to take feedback, also negative or constructive feedback, and actually actively improve yourself, even if that feedback comes from someone who is, let's say, in a hierarchical structure way beneath you. But you see, okay, that person has got a point, and I will actively introduce some action points so that I can better myself. That is, for example, in my opinion, a good characteristic of a leader. Are there any more that come to your mind?
Yeah, I would agree with that. In my mind, I would call it being humble. Being humble, just never assuming that you're done, that you know everything and can do everything. What I've always liked personally, so like the coolest person I've ever worked with or worked for was someone who would keep pushing me forward and just try to show me the limits I was seeing and why I wasn't right in setting that particular limit and what I could do to develop further. That was he did it very well, and we're still friends also today. Yeah. And I really appreciated that. I think also really providing focus is absolutely underrated. So I've worked most of my time in small companies, and so focus is like super important to get things done in a small company. Yeah. And so a leader who is able to keep refocusing you onto what's important and making you spend your energy on the right tasks, that will just naturally lead to the individual and the team feeling more successful over time. And that can be quite inspiring. Let me think if there is something else. I think the last part sort of ties into the first one. It's just not being super serious all the time and being able to talk like normal people to one another, like step out of that formal relationship and just not necessarily be friends, but like be cool, you know.
I asked this question. This is kind of building up to this, because our last guest was Alicia Andert. She's a lawyer from Berlin, and she also has this clubhouse talk, this round table where they always discuss. The last time they discussed leadership, and they had from a legal tech company, which are more of a startup style, flat hierarchies, kind of what we're used to. But they also had like Yeah, the big four, basically, like really top-notch legal firms, and they had invited people from there as well. And then they had the question, which leadership style is best? And of course, you had the guys and the girls in the gray suits and going like, well, we definitely need hierarchy. Hierarchy is the only way to real success. And then you had the startup people who are just as successful as them, of course not with the money, but who are skyrocketing at the moment, telling them no, absolutely not. We also work in legal tech, or we work in law, and we are the best example that it also works with the flat hierarchies, with the trust over control. And it was a really, really heated discussion. And my question now is actually superfluous. I wanted to ask, in which camp do you see yourself? What would you think? Is hierarchy always bad?
No. I think both the idea that it's always bad and that social systems without any hierarchy at all are even possible. I think that's just not. It's somewhat of a naive view in some ways. Let's say you're part of a firefighting team and you pull up in front of a burning building. What would you rather see? Would you like to see like a guy make decisions to like put out the fire and rescue people, or would you rather think like, okay, somebody's putting up a few post-its on a wall, everybody's pulling up chairs, and they're going to have a healthy discussion about what's the best approach here, and maybe A/B test it a little bit. That doesn't make sense. Absolutely, hierarchies have their place. For example, so psychologically or organizational science as a perspective would tell us that hierarchies increase efficiency, but they also reduce flexibility. So hierarchical organizations become super good at executing a certain plan to perfection. So you have, let's say here in Cologne, we have Ford who are building cars, right? So building cars is an incredibly small margin business where you definitely need the super efficient approach. Because I think I read a couple of years ago that Ford makes like 200 euros of profit per car they sell, which seems crazy given that the average car is in the tens of thousands, right? Yeah. So in those instances, hierarchy is pretty good. Or in the military, where you just really have a strategy that you need to execute in order to find out if it works. That's the tool you should use, probably. But then.
What about office work, though? I mean, if you're talking about the military, about firefighters, sure, they definitely need someone who tells the other people what to do because, well, time is, of course, an absolute issue and it's life and death. But just a normal office environment, I guess, where it's not a matter of life and death, it's just about the matter of making the most revenue. I mean, we could see it a lot. The companies that started out with this rather flexible outlook and that just turned huge. Be it Microsoft or Facebook or whatever, they all lived with Facebook was with the beanbags in their offices and whatever. But even because they are so huge right now, they say, well, of course we have hierarchical structures as well, and it was just we couldn't plan around that. But do you think it would still be possible the bigger a company gets that you maintain, let's say this startup mentality of always eye level as much as possible and I think culturally, absolutely. Yeah. You can, or you should be able to have a big organization where people are still able to talk to each other like normal people and not fall into political games. There's actually an interesting book by a guy. I think he's the CEO of a biotech company now, and he sort of says the main ingredient is the ratio of people who are competing for a leadership position, and you want to keep that ratio as big as possible. So like if 5 people are competing in their minds, at least for the position of their boss, everyone thinks like I think I got a shot, and then it becomes political. But if you have 30 people competing for that same position, the individually calculated probability of having a reasonable chance at obtaining that job gets lower, and so people refocus their energy. So I think that's one thing where you can really, and this is what a flat hierarchy is, right? You have fewer leadership levels with more individuals reporting to a leadership role. But then on the other hand, it really depends what you're trying to do. If you want innovation and flexibility, then you shouldn't have a hierarchy or a less
hierarchical system. But if you don't need innovation, you need execution, because you know exactly what works and you just need it to run well in order to get the most out of it, then probably more structure is what you want. The problem, of course, is when it changes. And this is sort of the macro trend of the VUCA world. So this like volatile, uncertain, ambiguous. I don't know what the C was for. I'm sorry. But it basically it means the world used to be easier to understand. And once you understood it, the paradigm you had was valid for a longer period of time. And so that's changing, right? So we now have much more rapid change going on everywhere. So I think a good example is just the software space, where every 5 to 10 years you have completely new companies that seem to just dominate certain areas of the business world, and you never heard of them before. And it's true now, and it will be true in 5 years, probably going to get faster. You have companies like Tesla, where 15 years ago, everybody was laughing about them and nobody was building electric cars. And now everybody is building electric cars because they just created that demand in the market, where everyone now says like, okay, I kind of want a cool electric car. And if Mercedes or whoever isn't building one, then they just won't be buying their cars. And I think in order to adapt to this rapid change, where if you want to stay relevant as a business, you have to be able to reinvent yourself. And if you're super stuck in a certain hierarchical political system that has lots of unwritten rules, you're just not going to be very good at doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely agree. I mentioned something in the beginning. I'm going to take that up again. Jonas, you invented the 10 o'clock truce. Do you mind telling? Because nobody knows what the hell the 10 o'clock truce is, except for what.
Yes.
Yeah. What is it, and how did you come up with that idea?
Okay. Let me lend some credibility to the concept.
Yes.
From the start, and saying that it is a pretty well accepted concept that there are people who have a later biorhythm and people who are earlier people. So they are called owls and larks. So I myself.
What was the second? Larks.
Larks.
What is? I don't know that word. What?
It's a bird that gets up early. Okay. Apparently. The bird with the worm, people would say. Right, yeah. So anyway, I'm an owl myself. And so basically, it just means that for certain people, the biorhythm just has a different structure, where your high performance times throughout the day are at later hours. So, and the 10 o'clock truce is just a funny name I invented to not be held accountable for things that go wrong too early in the morning, when I'm just not. I have to be there because life is dominated by larks, but I have to adapt somehow. So I think I would like to think that larks also screw up late at night if they have to focus, and so for them maybe we have a 10 p.m. truce. If you will.
Yeah, we got to keep it. Yeah, we got to keep it open for everyone.
Yeah.
I also heard that all these sayings, like the early bird catches the worm, they also have like a follow up which says the exact opposite. It's like, for the early bird, it's the early bird catches the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
I mean? And it always, yeah. Anyway, what I really liked about the 10 o'clock truce is because I myself also am an owl. And I remember our meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning, both of us not have had any coffee, and we're just spitballing ideas. And we know all of these ideas are shit. And we're like, oh, I really... And then you're like, okay, you know what? While I'm presenting the idea and I'm thinking like, well, maybe there are more economical ways to boost company morale than a pool table. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call the 10 o'clock truce right now. And everybody's like, okay, cool, 10 o'clock truce, 10 o'clock truce. Yeah. No, I just found it was kind of like the... How do you say? Manifestation of like psychological safety, which I really like in a company. Like psychologically safe means you are not afraid to make mistakes, or you can bring your ideas in without having to think of the consequences. Like, hey, Don, you just wasted 15 minutes of your life with that weird idea of a pool table. It's like, no, I'm just bring that idea in because why not? You know, what's the worst that can happen? Maybe it was a bad idea, but at least I want to be able to speak my mind on it. Mm-hmm. And that's just super. That's and yeah. And the 10 o'clock truce was like, okay, if I have these ideas, they have to come before 10 o'clock. After that, I have to be on point. So no, I really, yeah.
So, but that creates a weird dynamic where you now have to strategically plan ahead to maintain the low quality ideas ahead of 10 a.m., which is again effort and sort of defeats the purpose, maybe, you know?
Oh man, we gotta play that out. We gotta. Yeah. At the end of the day, it was like after we had our second coffee, then we were on point. You know, that was the second coffee was always like the benchmark. It's like after here, yeah, okay, we can keep on going. Here's another question. I heard from who did I hear? Also, I think I read it either on LinkedIn or someone told me. We used it in honestly a lot. We didn't say employees, but we used the word talent. Like for what do you think of that? Because I hear that word is really catching on, and I would just like to hear your thoughts on that as a work psychologist, HR professional, or people professional, which would lead to my next question. But yeah, employee or talent? What would you rather use?
I have a really a hard time pretending I care either way. You know, in the end, people come up with like different names for things that are a bit chewed out. So in recruiting software developers, at some point, everybody was looking for rock stars.
Really?
Yes. And I always wondered why. They do drugs, they don't adhere to any schedule, and they smash the room they sleep in.
But they also write songs like Roxanne, you don't need to...
Yes, but would you want to employ that person?
Hell no, absolutely not. Hell no.
It's just a short tangent. Some guy on the internet actually invented a programming language called Rockstar, which completely works by some form of recycling actual rock song lyrics. So he could put in his resume that he's a Rockstar developer. Yeah, but that just goes to show you that I don't think the people you mean actually like that term.
Okay. Yeah.
I like employees. Talent is, in a way, on a more abstract level, is a nice way of valuing that people have talents and competencies and own their own goals. Probably. Employees is also fine. I mean, that's just the relationship a company has to these people. But you know, I think I'm more of a fan of being context dependent. So if I write a contract for an employee, but I talk to a person, if that makes sense. You know, so that's why I think there is no right or wrong term. Just don't call them human resources. That's really weird.
That would be my next. That would be my next. How long we know each other for 2 years now? And you said that you always didn't like the term human resources. Yes. You always went for back at Honestly. You were the head of people, and now you do what do you
also people operations.
People operations, exactly.
Yes,
why is that so important to you that you don't want to call it HR but say people?
Okay, because it's weird to me that it's sort of an accepted view, or at least a lot of people claim they're like, oh, our people are our biggest asset. But then you refer to them as resources, and resources are something that is mined, processed, depleted. Something that doesn't seem very, very human and affectionate to me. And it's sort of it's a technical term in the English language. But if like German people who do this job would translate it to menschliche Ressourcen, they would immediately notice how weird it sounds, and so I think it doesn't really express a worldview where these are actual people with individual goals, desires, competencies, problems, skills, etc., who should have a say in how their work works. And when they don't, that's tying back to like one of the first things I said. Work doesn't work for most people. Most people, apparently, if you believe the statistics, do not really particularly like their jobs and have a very weird way of looking at it. My dad would always tell me, like, go to a big company, you will be set for life. And I was like, but what if I don't like it? That didn't figure in his calculation. Right. So I think if we want a more a world of work where people actually feel psychologically safe, want to want to share their ideas and be creative and not get ill through work, we should start by how we frame our relationships to them, and maybe not referring to them as resources.
Agree, completely agree.
Is a good start.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Would you rather? What is more important for you? Is it if somebody comes and wants to work at Ambient Innovation, you do the interview? How important is cultural fit?
The most important thing.
The most important thing.
Yes.
Okay.
You will never ever get a job there if you're not a fit.
Okay.
Culturally.
Okay. And what if the person is like in their field of work, complete expertise, completely, but.
Well, then I'm very happy for the company who decides to take them on, and I hope that they are a cultural fit there.
And why? Why? No, why is culture so important?
Okay, so imagine you're living in an apartment with 10 people.
Yes.
What percentage of those people would you tolerate to be assholes on a daily basis?
0.
I rest my case.
Okay. The thing is, we ask this question a lot, and everybody says, well, no, cultural fit is super important, because you cannot teach someone not to be a douche. You can teach someone who is not particularly, not perfect yet in his or her field to learn more, but it's really, really hard to integrate someone who is simply not integratable into that certain community.
Okay, I have given the yellow press answer now. Let me elaborate. Let me elaborate just a little bit. So it's not necessarily just about being an asshole or not. Actually, somebody who is not the most likable person could still very well be an excellent cultural fit, because it's just more than personal sympathy. I mean, at Ambient, we're 70 people. It's quite unlikely that everybody is going to be excellent friends with everybody, right? But so the question is always, what actually is your culture? Which I would say is already a question that most organizations can't clearly answer without lapsing into platitudes and general terms that don't really mean anything. But for example, so Ambient is a very agile organization, and we don't have a flat hierarchy. We don't have any hierarchy. There are managing directors who own the business, and that's it. And that's it. There are different teams who work on projects for clients, and then if you want to step out of your core role and participate in another field of the business, like sales, marketing, HR, whatever, we have circles, which are just parallel teams. But responsibility works with just like, hey, I'm going to be responsible for this, right? Nobody assigns anyone else work. You discuss it in the team or the circle, who's going to do what, and then you just go and do it, and you are responsible for getting it done and getting help and everything, right? So, and we use Scrum, a pretty clean version of Scrum. But my point is, cultural fit means, can you perform well within these cultural boundaries, right? And my experience in the past is, for example, if you have people who have worked 20 years in corporate environments where there are very high stakes in getting something wrong, where you could always rely on passing the buck up the chain, maybe, if things don't work, and where there was always somebody who would help you decide what to do or help you choose what's important, they have a very hard time just forgetting that. You just learn it, and it's fine also. There is no judgment there. It just means they're probably not going to transition well into an environment where they don't have a boss, where there is nobody who will tell you what to do, and where your work entirely depends on your ability to talk to your colleagues, find out what's going on, prioritize together, and then just at some point just say like, okay, I'll do this. I'll make sure this gets done. And so it's a different way. It's a different way of working, which psychologically is very healthy. So I do judge on that level, because being able to decide for yourself what you are doing, when you will be doing it, who you are doing it with, and deciding, come on, man.
Don't you tell me to come on. Don't you? Yeah.
But having being in control for a big chunk of this process, that's very psychologically healthy, and you don't have that very often in big corporate environments. Yeah. I get lots of applicants who come from these environments, mostly young people who sort of realized after the first 1 or 2 years, like, hey, I feel like I'm just a number here. Right. Nobody cares how I'm doing. Everybody just cares about some KPIs that I feel are completely unrealistic, and I just have to grind it out day in, day out. They apply to companies like ours because they just don't feel like they could ever be comfortable working there. But for every one of these kinds of people, for everyone like me who doesn't enjoy it at all, there is somebody who really likes it and thrives and can be successful in those environments. Yeah.
I remember when I applied at Honestly, when you were still head of people at Honestly, and I came from, my job before that was at we were an external service provider for a corporate bank, and there was exactly that, a lot of, what's the English word? Ellbogengesellschaft, like Shark Tank mentality, kind of like that, And I cannot strive in an environment like that, but I noticed in a lot of other people that was exactly the environment that was right for them. No. I just noticed that it was completely not the thing for me. And then I applied out Honestly. I remember I came in, it was a cultural interview. It was you and Omid, I think, and I came in a fucking suit. I appeared then. I just come into the start and everybody's like, who the hell is this? And you interviewed me, you had shorts on or something. I was like, man, come on. But it still worked because we knew that after the first 10 minutes or so, we would notice, okay, these are the kind of people that I really want to work with. And you look past the suit, so to say. You're like, okay, he seems to be a cool guy, even though he dresses like a douche. But no,
it looked good on you.
Thank you.
Let the record show.
Thank you. That is what I intended with that. No, but exactly. So completely agree.
Yeah. The idea of cultural fit, it's dangerous to reduce it to just being nice and getting along. It has to do with, for me at least, it has to do with having the natural inclination to work in a way that complements what's already there. To work within the team, to share the values of the company. So if you have, on a personal level, the value of assuming responsibility and ownership, and you want that, then you probably should go to a company who wants to give you that responsibility. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's more nuanced than that, for sure.
Jonas.
I should have started with
Jonas Jankus. Jonas, I know you to be a tech aficionado. What are the bottlenecks in Germany regarding digitization, if any, that come to your mind? Is there like any certain instance where you thought like, hell, man, this could have been a digitalized process, but now I'm stuck here with 15 pages of paper, and it's going to take me 2 months to get an answer from the city? So
let me just say from the start, why are we still using fax machines? There are, I don't know the exact number, but there are, I think, still thousands of fax machines on active duty in German government. Right. So let's start there. What the fucks, so to speak. I think one article I read about the Corona app summed it up pretty well. Is like this obsession with data security. And so absolutely nothing can be used if there is even the slightest doubt that it may violate some higher notion of data security. And this article said like, we can't roll out a way for people to be warned about positive corona cases in their environment earlier, but at least the dead people can rest assured that their data is safe. And I think this is a bit morbid, but it sums it up very nicely. And I think, I don't know, man, it's something about the German mentality overall that just makes them very, very hesitant to change in some ways. So I went to school in the Netherlands, and I had like a digital access for government services, I don't know, like 13 years ago, where I could log in to like my tax documents or whatever by getting a code on my cell phone, just like simple SMS code. I log in, I can take care of forms and everything, zero paper involved. It just works. In Germany, 2 government instances in the same city don't even talk to one another. They will ask data of you several times over. And I'm just wondering, like, you are the government.
Yeah.
Why? I'm absolutely fine with you not bothering me. Bother each other instead. Just get it done, you know? So I think that's one thing. But on a business side, there was some study a while back what board meetings are about, and it compared America and Germany. And so in American companies, who, let's just say, should also not be role models in terms of data security and everything.
Yes.
So let it be known. I don't think that's the perfect model for everything. But when they have board meetings, the CEOs and the board members discuss opportunities in the market, big picture trends. They decide what to pursue, what not to pursue, and what opportunities there are and how to tackle them maybe, and they provide guidance and that kind of thing. So it's sort of future-oriented, if you will. And German board meetings are much more about laws, regulations, and how to avoid misstepping in some way. And so that it's just focused on different things. And I think this is indicative just of a larger culture where people just feel apprehensive of trying new things. And another thing I read sometimes that Germans are like pessimistically future oriented, which translates to they are preoccupied with what could go wrong persistently. And this gives you amazingly secure cars, trains, planes, everything, right? There's quality.
But it also gives you a fax machine in 2020.
Yes, it also gives you a fax machine in 2020, exactly. So you go to the government office in a very secure car to read the faxes of the day.
Yeah. I also saw another pertaining to that fax machine thing is like what was it? Some little city in Bavaria. And their big win of the week was that they reduced their fax number to 5 digits. And they really meant it. And that was like a couple of weeks ago, bro. And I'm like, is this for real, though? What? Yeah. No, yes. But I get what you mean. And I saw also the thing with the Netherlands as well, because for me, just stuff like paying digitally, paying with your card, going to Albert Heijn and just paying with your card. I was standing there. I had like cash in my wallet, as any good German would, and in front of me is like 5 like elderly ladies paying with everything, with cards, with a fucking keychain or something. She somehow paid with a keychain. I don't know. They, in that regard, I'm also wondering why. I mean, it's not that much.
Even better, a small detail I love in the Netherlands: you can put your card in before the cashier is finished scanning your products. Not in Germany, my friend. Only a lunatic would offer his card up before he knows what he is going to have to pay, right? But I'm pretty sure if you calculate the time saved over the course of a day, it would be an amazing time save to do the same thing and not have to like wait around to get that number. Just give them the card. Like, what are you going to do? Is like, oh, this is €5 more than I wanted to pay. Please take back my deep freeze pizza. This is not. Nobody does that.
Nobody does.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird how German businesses are focused on weird things. Like also just software made by these companies. It's just bad to use. It's just not fun to use, and it doesn't matter what it is. If it's the DHL package station where you have like a self-service package station, it could be the operating system of a car, or I had in one of my corporate jobs, I had to work with an older version of SAP, and that just gave me PTSD. It was so bad. Just nobody cares about making it simple and easy to use. It's much more about predicting every eventuality and being ready for it. And I think the successful software and digital projects just focus the person much more than the software in a way, where it's just fun and easy to use. And that gets people to use it. And who cares if you have like 5 million features that nobody's ever going to use? So I don't know. It's difficult, but it's changing for sure. We have more and more young companies who are doing it differently and who are trying to cut through it and make it simpler. Yeah. I don't know.
I love, by the way, how Marcel is reacting to this part. Normally, when Marcel is in the background doing all the tech stuff, all the audio stuff, but today he's like, every time you say something, he's like, "Yeah, bro, I completely agree with that." He's like, yeah. Jonas, you're moving on to, well, not bigger things, but you're starting your own company now, right? Or you're in the midst of launching your own consultancy would be the right word, or how can I call it?
I feel pressured into committing something right away. But yeah, I know what you mean. So basically, I've been working freelance on the side for a number of years now, and I just decided I need a website eventually. So this is what's going to come. It's going to be newworkpro.com, and what I do is basically the same thing I always do, helping companies create workplaces that are more engaging and have a better employee experience.
Making work work.
Making work work, exactly. So I'm just making it a bit more official in the coming weeks.
How would you? This is another cliche. I always allow myself like 3 cliche questions in each interview. This is the last one. How do you measure success?
Oh, Jesus.
Do this in
How do I? Financially, it just has to be enough. I like to spoil myself, but I'm like super fine not being spoiled, if that makes sense. A good vacation for me is going to Lithuania and hanging out in a national park in a small cottage with no internet, and I can spend weeks there and be fine.
Well, you have a fax machine though, right?
No fax machines. No fax machines. We do have roosters.
Is that like an app or something? Is that like
So on that level, it just needs to be enough to provide. So my kids are comfortable, my wife is comfortable, and we don't feel like life is unduly hard due to lack of funds. But other than that, my main measure, if I'm doing okay, is how I feel on Monday morning or Sunday evening, for that matter. And as long as I wake up on Monday and it feels like either every other day and it's fine, and or I'm like, hey, nice, oh, this project is moving forward today, I look forward to doing that. That's good. And when I feel the opposite, too many Mondays in a row, I start to make evaluations of things that need to change.
No, that's already plenty. I think I'm going to use that sentence as the opener for our post. How do you measure success? How do I feel on Sunday evening or on Monday morning?
Yeah. I think I try to live by that cliche that money isn't everything. I've rejected job offers that were financially very, very nice, but I could just anticipate that I would not really make it through the first year without losing joy.
Absolutely. I also always hear the sentence like people, they're making a lot more money than I am, but they also work like 70 hours a week. And I'm like, well, if you're so successful, why the fuck are you still working 70 hours a week, bro? You know what I mean? I mean, it depends if it's something that you really love. I think 70 hours doesn't seem like 70 hours. But me, for myself, I don't know. I also enjoy having a free weekend, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I know there's... one acquaintance of mine had a conversation with a woman working for Goldman in London. And she said something to the effect of like, I wouldn't get up for less than £80,000 a year. And his response was, well, you're never going to bed for 180,000 or whatever she's making. So, priorities, I guess. But I don't think there's too many people who retire or spend their last days wishing they had worked just a little bit more, or they had just made a little bit more money. I don't think those are the things.
I should have spent more time in meetings.
Yes,
that's what's missing.
Oh man. if I just had added 10 minutes to every meeting, my life would have just been so much fuller.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's true. And I'm lucky. I come from a big family that's always valued it. Like community in my family is pretty important. And so I'm just trying to live by that and make space for hedonism and for just, some would say wasting time, but it's not wasted if you enjoy it.
Exactly. Time's not wasted if you're having fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
I'll see you on League of Legends tonight.
That's important. That is likely.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap it up. Jonas, thank you so much for coming here today.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you guys around. Thank you for tuning in. I'm gonna cut that, wenn wir gleich nochmal schneiden können. Nope. Thanks for tuning in into another episode of the Prevence Podcast. See you guys next time.
Prevence Podcast.